She walked into that courtroom wearing a cute outfit, full makeup, and a smile on her face. While prosecutors were laying out a murder case that involved AR-style rifles, brass catchers, a coordinated ambush, and a rapper being shot to death in his car at 4 in the morning, she was laughing. Laughing, not nervous, not shaking, not quietly wiping tears in the back row, laughing, putting on lip gloss, acting like she was watching somebody else's trial, and honestly, that attitude, that unbothered, I-don't-know-nothing energy, is exactly what made Alicia Andrews the most fascinating and controversial figure in the entire Foolio murder case. Because here's the thing, the men who actually pulled the triggers, 4 of them, all convicted of first-degree murder, all sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. But Alicia Andrews, the only woman charged, wasn't a shooter, wasn't a documented gang member, never fired a weapon, never even threw a punch. So how exactly did she end up sitting at that defense table charged with first-degree murder? That's what we're getting into today. This is the full story of Alicia Andrews, the girlfriend, the lookout, the one they called the setup queen. Before we can understand what Alicia Andrews did or didn't do, we need to understand the world she got pulled into. Charles Jones, better known to the world as Foolio, a 26-year-old rapper from Jacksonville, Florida, who had built a name for himself in the drill scene. He had music videos, street credibility, a following, and he also had enemies, serious ones. Jacksonville, Florida, for those who don't know, has a rap scene that is deeply intertwined with some genuinely violent gang politics. And in the years leading up to the summer of 2024, a war had been brewing. A brutal, ongoing back and forth between rival factions, 6 Block on one side and ATK and 1,200 on the other. People were dying, regularly. Foolio, Charles Jones, was deeply associated with the 6 Block side of this conflict, and he made no secret of it. He rapped about it. He dissed the other side. He put names in his music, names of people who had died, names of rivals, taunts aimed directly at the other camp. And the other side responded in kind. Songs were dropped referencing the dead, referencing the violence, referencing what had happened and what was going to happen. This wasn't coded, this wasn't subtle. This was a very public, very documented war being fought as much on Instagram Live and in music videos as it was on the streets. Prosecutors would later bring those lyrics into court as evidence. Songs where lines referenced catching a target lacking, referenced specific calibers of weapons, referenced specific cities and specific victims. The music wasn't just art. According to prosecutors, it was a running diary of the conflict. And in the middle of all this, Foolio had already survived multiple attempts on his life. One time he got shot in the foot. Prosecutors alleged that Sean Gathright, one of the 4 men eventually convicted of murder, was involved in that earlier shooting as well. Julio had also reportedly been targeted in Houston. He had caught people lacking and been caught lacking. He was living on borrowed time, and somehow he seemed to know it, and kept going anyway. So, by June of 2024, when Foolio announced publicly on Instagram that he was heading to Tampa to celebrate his birthday, he was broadcasting his location to an audience that included people who had been trying to kill him for years. That decision would cost him his life. Alicia Andrews was born and raised in Jacksonville, Florida. She attended Raines High School before transferring to Andrew Jackson High School, graduating in May of 2021. Regular jobs after that: Amazon, Victoria's Secret, substitute teacher work. She lived at home with her parents. By every account, she was a normal 21-year-old. But Jacksonville is a city where the streets and the schools aren't always separate worlds. And Alicia Andrews, growing up on the north side of Jacksonville, was watching the same Instagram lives that everyone else was watching. The same beef, the same drama, the same back and forth between rival factions. She testified to this herself. Under oath, in open court, she told the jury that it was common knowledge at school.
When you were growing up at Raines or the Andrew Jackson High School, did you see any of the gang activity or the gang back and forth while you were in high school?
I saw it online.
All right. What types of things did you see online?
They would go on Instagram and go live, and everybody would be sitting it to everybody like, "Are y'all watching?" Like, we're young, we don't have nothing to do, so we would be kind of tuned in just watching.
Was this popular conversation in school?
Yes.
And would people send these lives and these different things to each other?
Yes.
Would people text about these things?
Yes.
And would people talk about these things?
Yes.
Would they talk about it at school, like at lunch?
Yes.
Would they talk about it during practice and for sports?
Yes.
Would they talk about it at football games?
Yeah.
All right. This was common knowledge to everyone in the schools?
Yeah.
Why?
I mean, again, we were young, so everything that's going on in the media, everybody just talked about it.
And in 2021, when she was just 17 years old, she was texting her friend about it too. Prosecutors would later pull out those text messages and put them in front of a jury. On January 21st, 2021, Alicia Andrews texted her friend Jewel Jordan, "Girl, I don't like Theo. Ugly ass. He need to die." Now, Alicia would later testify that this was just gossip. She was 17, she was reading comments on Instagram and texting her thoughts to her friend. She said she didn't mean it literally, and honestly, in context, that explanation is at least plausible. Teenagers say all kinds of things when they're caught up watching social media beef. But prosecutors filed that message away as something very important, because 3 years later, Foolio would in fact be dead, and Alicia Andrews would be there when it happened. In another message from around the same time, Alicia wrote about the gang war. Right, so it's going to go on, and they keep saying let rest, but I'm sure the other side be feeling like that. So it's going to keep repeating, yeah, they know what come with it, so charge you to the game, go retaliate or something. They sitting up there rapping, but that's y'all homeboy. Just do what y'all have to do. Again, Alicia said she was gossiping. The defense said these were old messages between teenage girls watching a volatile situation online. But the prosecution saw something different. They saw a pattern. A young woman who wasn't a passive bystander in this world, who understood it, who had opinions about it, who had connections to people on one side of it. And then, in the summer of 2021, she started dating Isaiah Chance. Isaiah Chance, street name Guta, a documented member of ATK, one of Jacksonville's most active and violent street gangs. He was known to law enforcement. He was known to the people on the other side of the conflict. He was known in the streets. And Alicia Andrews started dating him after graduating high school. The connection was simple enough. He had a sister she knew from Raines High School. That was it. She knew of him through his sister. And in the beginning, she testified the relationship was good.
In the beginning, it was good, I would say. And then he changed over time. I mean, once we got comfortable with each other.
What did he change? What had changed about him?
He started to be a little more controlling. Like as I got older and I would want to go out, he didn't like that.
In what ways was he controlling?
Like he would tell me what to post, what not to post, or if he didn't want me to take something down, or don't wear this, don't wear that, like little stuff like that.
And when he was having these controlling ways, would you listen to him?
Yes.
Why?
I mean, I didn't know no better at the time.
Other than just having controlling ways, did Isaiah Chance ever put his hands on you?
Yes.
How many times?
I wouldn't say I was counting, but it's been a few times.
Do you remember the first time that it happened?
Yes.
When was the first time that it happened?
Back in like 2021 at his house.
What happened in that situation?
We were arguing over the phone. Like he wanted my phone and I wouldn't give it to him. And that was the first time he ever like snatched it, and he ended up hitting me.
Hit you how?
With a closed fist. And I was kind of like just blocking myself and saying stop.
All right, were you standing up? Were you on the ground?
I was on the bed, the edge of the bed.
And how did it stop?
His mom came in. He was telling him like to back up off me, and he was like, no, she good, and he closed the door.
She had bruises. She couldn't go home because he wouldn't let her. She hid it from her parents. She told her friend Jewel Jordan, and she sent photos, a bruised eye, a cracked phone screen, documenting what happened. It happened again in 2022, and again in 2024, just days before the Tampa trip. He had gotten jealous over a phone call from a male friend. He drove her to a park, demanded her phone, and when she refused to unlock it, he hit her on the side of the face repeatedly, her head bouncing off the seatbelt housing. That went on for about 20 minutes before he eventually stopped, apologized, and took her out to eat. That cycle, violence, then apology, then normalcy, is the pattern Alicia described. And she testified that it's why she stayed. Because in those kinds of relationships, leaving isn't always as simple as just walking out. He knew where she lived. He would pop up at her house at all hours. He blocked her phone when he was angry, then texted from other numbers when she didn't respond. He told her nobody else would want her, and over time, according to Alicia, she became embedded in his world, not because she chose it, but because it slowly became the only world she had access to. Now, here is where the story gets complicated, because the prosecution didn't dispute the domestic violence. They showed the jury those same photos. They acknowledged that Isaiah Chance beat Alicia Andrews. What they argued was that being in an abusive relationship does not automatically explain everything that happened in Tampa. And that argument, as we'll see, had some very inconvenient evidence backing it up. June 21st, 2024. The murder of Foolio has not happened yet. It is 2 days away. Alicia Andrews is in Jacksonville, and according to investigators, she does something that becomes one of the most significant pieces of evidence in the entire case. She sends an Instagram direct message to a woman she knows, someone who helps people book Airbnbs and short-term rentals, asking about availability in Tampa, Florida for the following night. Investigators obtained a search warrant for Alicia's Instagram account, and what they found was very clear. On June 21st, Alicia messaged this woman asking to find an Airbnb in Tampa for June 22nd. She specifically requested something with 2 bedrooms, and critically, she did not want it booked under her own name. Now, Alicia testified that she sent that message because Isaiah called her and asked her to reach out to the girl who does the Airbnbs. He gave her instructions, she followed them, she said she didn't know why they were going to Tampa. She didn't ask, she just did what she was told. The Airbnb ultimately ended up being booked under the name of Rashad Murphy, one of the 4 shooters. A Cash App subpoena of Isaiah Chance's verified account under the username Mr. Rich Off War revealed a payment of $361 to Airbnb that matched the time the booking confirmation appeared on Rashad Murphy's phone. So let's map this out clearly. Alicia initiates the Airbnb inquiry. The Airbnb gets booked under Rashad Murphy's name. Isaiah Chance's Cash App pays for it, and the location, approximately 1.3 miles from the hotel where Foolio would be murdered 2 nights later, booked for June 22nd through June 24th. Prosecutors argued this wasn't coincidence. This was coordination. And Alicia Andrews, whether she fully understood what she was helping set up or not, was a key part of making it happen. Alicia testified that on the morning of June 22nd, she called Isaiah like she always did. He mentioned he might be going out of town. She said she wanted to come. He told her to pack her stuff. He didn't tell her where exactly. He didn't tell her who else was going. He just told her to be ready. She had her sister drop her at a club that was closer to his location because she doesn't drive. From there, Isaiah picked her up and drove to Sean Gathright's house. This is key, because surveillance cameras at Gathright's house captured something that afternoon. Isaiah Chance and Sean Gathright were on camera loading large bags into the black Chevy Impala, bags big enough to carry rifles. This was captured on Gathright's own home security system. Nobody made that footage up. It existed. The jury saw it. Alicia said she sat in the car while this happened. She didn't see the bags. She wasn't paying attention. She was on TikTok. From Gathright's house, the group made their way to Tampa in 2 separate vehicles. Isaiah Chance and Alicia Andrews in a silver 2018 Chevy Cruze. Sean Gathright, Rashad Murphy, and Davion Murphy in a black 2008 Chevy Impala. License plate readers tracked both vehicles making the same stops at the same times on 4 separate occasions. These 2 cars were not traveling separately. They were moving together as one coordinated unit, just maintaining the visual separation of 2 different vehicles. They arrived at the Airbnb at approximately 7:55 p.m., and Alicia Andrews was the first person captured on the Ring camera at the front door, walking in with her phone already in her hand. Here's where it gets extremely detailed, and extremely damning for Alicia Andrews. Foolio had been posting his whereabouts on Instagram for days. He was in Tampa for his birthday. He announced he was going to be at Teaser's Gentlemen's Club and Truth 18 nightclub. Public posts, public invitations, and the group in that Airbnb was watching every single one. In the early hours of June 23rd, the operation began. The silver Chevy Cruze, carrying Isaiah Chance and Alicia Andrews, moved first. They arrived at Teaser's, and here is the detail that prosecutors hammered home at trial. Isaiah Chance was not using his own phone that night, he was using Alicia's. Investigators identified the phone that Isaiah was seen holding on surveillance cameras as belonging to Alicia Andrews. And call detail records confirmed that while they were at Teaser's, that phone, Alicia's phone, was actively communicating with Sean Gathright's phone. Gathright was in the black Impala. Alicia's phone became the communication bridge between the surveillance car and the kill car, and it didn't stop there. On 3 separate occasions throughout that night, confirmed through an Apple iCloud warrant, Alicia's phone shared its live location directly with Sean Gathright's phone. 3 times, while they were following Foolio's entourage around Tampa, her phone was pinging Gathright's phone with her exact GPS position. At Truth 18, Isaiah even FaceTimed someone using Alicia's phone and flipped the camera to show whoever was on the other end how crowded the club was, showing them the scene, giving them eyes on the location. A screenshot of that FaceTime ended up saved in Alicia's phone. The crews confirmed Foolio's location at Teasers, then both vehicles followed his entourage to Truth 18. Then both vehicles tracked him to the Home 2 Suites Hotel on McKinley Drive. And then, at 4:37 a.m., the Silver Cruise ran a red light at high speed and turned into that hotel parking lot. It drove along the south side of the building, passing directly by Foolio's parked vehicles. Then it made a U-turn. Then it passed them again. Then it left. 1 minute later, at 4:38 a.m., 3 shooters stepped out of the black Impala. 3 masked men, armed, moving on foot toward their target. Shooter 1 carried a Glock pistol with an extended magazine, firing at fully automatic rate with his left hand. Prosecutors would later identify him as Rashad Murphy, who had been captured on Jacksonville Walmart surveillance footage the night before wearing the exact same clothing. Dark hoodie, black jeans with a rip in the left knee, military-style boots, and Rashad Murphy is left-handed. Shooters 2 and 3 carried AR-style rifles, each equipped with brass catchers to collect their own shell casings and leave no evidence behind. The rifle shooters collected their brass, but the Glock shooter left behind 31 9mm shell casings on the ground, the only physical evidence the killers couldn't take with them. Foolio was shot inside his Dodge Charger. According to accounts from the second video source covering this story, he was relaxed in the passenger seat when the shooting started, feet up on the dash. He tried to climb into the back seat. He took a 5.56 round to the chest that went through his heart. He was still trying to move. He caught 2 more rounds in the back. One went into his liver. Charles Jones, Julio Foolio, 26 years old, dead in a hotel parking lot in Tampa, Florida on his birthday. 3 other people in his entourage were wounded. By the time the first shot was fired, Alicia Andrews and Isaiah Chance were already gone. The defendants returned to the Airbnb. About 10 hours after the shooting, Isaiah Chance stepped out the front door briefly, holding a champagne flute in his left hand. That same afternoon, a message sent from Sean Gathright's phone read, "I'm coming home. My thirst is quenched. Pop a bottle of Don Julio today." Don Julio. Investigators noted that sipping on Don Julio is a known phrase of disrespect specifically directed at Foolio within the Jacksonville gang world. This wasn't coincidence. It was a celebration message. And while Isaiah was popping bottles, Alicia Andrews was getting ready to leave. She was seen on camera leaving the Airbnb wearing the same clothes she had on the night before. She, Isaiah, and Rashad Murphy took an Uber back to Jacksonville, straight to Sean Gathright's house, where surveillance cameras there captured all 3 of them stepping out of the car. Meanwhile, the cleanup operation was already moving. Sean Gathright drove the black Impala to a family member's house in Polk County. Surveillance cameras captured him wiping down the vehicle's door handles with a rag. He transferred multiple bags into a separate gold Toyota 4Runner. Those bags were later found to contain rifle ammunition, spent rifle casings, and Glock parts. Davion Murphy drove the crews back to Jacksonville. Rashad Murphy, who had deliberately left his own phone in Jacksonville before the trip, traveling to Tampa with no phone at all specifically to minimize his digital footprint, was caught 3 days later in Georgia, behind the wheel of the Cruise. When police tried to stop him, he jumped out and ran. This operation had been thought through, planned, executed with attention to detail, and according to prosecutors, Alicia Andrews was part of that planning from the jump. On June 27, 2024, 4 days after the murder, investigators executed a search warrant at Isaiah Chance's house. Alicia Andrews was there. She agreed to speak to investigators after being read her Miranda rights. And what followed was a police interview that would become one of the most significant pieces of evidence used against her. She told them she and Isaiah had gone to Tampa just to party. She said they went to the front doors of both clubs to ask how much it cost to get in. Surveillance cameras at both clubs proved that was false. They never approached the front doors of either Teasers or Truth 18. She admitted being in the Cruise at the Home 2 Suites parking lot but claimed they were just lost and turning around. She denied knowing Foolio or his entourage were there. She admitted to letting Isaiah use her phone but denied knowing what he was communicating about. She denied knowing Davion Murphy or Rashad Murphy. She said she barely knew Sean Gathright, had maybe met him once before. But here's where she gave investigators something extremely important without meaning to. She identified Isaiah Chance as the one driving the cruise that night. She put him behind the wheel. She confirmed the phone he was using was hers. And then she said she had absolutely no idea what any of it meant. The detectives pressed her hard. They told her they had video. They told her they had phone records. They told her they knew about the Airbnb. One detective leaned into her face and told her she was never going to see her baby, that she was going to spend her life in prison, that this wasn't a game, and Alicia sat there, sometimes laughing nervously, sometimes deflecting, sometimes saying, "I don't know," never giving them the names they wanted, never admitting to knowing about a murder plot. She was caught lying multiple times during that interview. The detectives pointed it out in real time, and her response was largely to shrug it off, claim she misunderstood the questions, or say that she just didn't want to be in the middle of it. Over a month after the murder, Alicia Andrews was arrested alongside Isaiah Chance at a residence in Jacksonville. She was charged with first-degree premeditated murder and conspiracy to commit first-degree murder. She pleaded not guilty. Alicia Andrews went to trial in October 2025, and in a move that defense attorneys often advise against, she took the stand in her own defense. She looked the jury in the eye and told them everything. That she didn't know anything about a murder plot, that she was just a girlfriend on a trip, that she was a victim of domestic violence who was too afraid of Isaiah Chance to say no, to ask questions, or to leave. Her testimony was detailed. She described the night step by step, being picked up, going toGathright's house, not noticing the bags being loaded, sitting in the back seat scrolling TikTok, not looking at Gathright's face, going to the Airbnb, lying in bed watching Netflix, going to McDonald's, going to the clubs, following Isaiah around because that's what she always did, handing over her phone because that's what she always did, hearing gunshots and assuming someone was shooting in the air, going back to the Airbnb and going to sleep. She said she didn't know why they went to Tampa, didn't know Foolio was in Tampa, didn't know what Isaiah was doing with her phone, didn't know who he was calling, didn't know who the other men were, didn't know about any plan to kill anyone, just an oblivious girlfriend along for the ride, and on the domestic violence, she was specific and she was credible. The photos were real, the bruised eye, the cracked phones, Exhibit 7. A through D admitted into evidence. Her testimony about being hit in 2021, 2022, and just days before the Tampa trip, it all aligned with the photographs. Nobody disputed that Isaiah Chance put his hands on her. The prosecution's cross-examination, though, was relentless. Prosecutor: "You are still protecting him, right?" Alicia: "I'm not protecting him." Prosecutor: "You are still calling him and communicating with him, aren't you?" Alicia: "Yes. It's not protecting him, though." Prosecutor: "So much so that you call his mother, right?" Alicia: "I do." Prosecutor: "And you have been advised and you report to his mother that you don't care that your attorneys tell you not to talk to him. You're going to do it anyway, right?" Alicia: "Yes, because I feel like that's the best way to do it." That exchange right there was devastating, because this is a woman on trial for first-degree murder, and she is telling the jury that she ignored her own lawyer's advice to keep calling the co-defendant, who is also awaiting trial for the same murder. But the most damaging piece came near the very end of cross-examination. On June 27, 2025, while her trial was still actively ongoing, Alicia sent Isaiah a message that read, "Half the witnesses are dead. You're listening to Jacksonville and they won't solve anything. I'm just lost because this is all pointless." The prosecutor read that to the jury, and then let it sit. Because that is not the message of a woman who didn't know what happened. That is not the message of a traumatized girlfriend who was completely in the dark about a murder. That is the message of someone who is tracking the case, someone who knows about the witness situation, someone who is, at minimum, very, very aware of what this is all about. Alicia's explanation? She was just venting. She didn't mean anything by it. She was frustrated. The jury heard that explanation, and they returned their verdict. After nearly 4 hours of deliberation, on October 31, 2025, the jury came back. The jury acquitted her of the conspiracy charge entirely. On the murder charge, they stepped down twice, from first degree past second degree, and landed on manslaughter, which tells us something important about how 12 ordinary people processed this case. They clearly believed Alicia Andrews was involved in something that contributed to Foolio's death. They didn't buy the completely oblivious girlfriend story. They said, "You were there, your phone was used, you helped arrange the Airbnb, you were in that parking lot and a man is dead. That's on you to some degree, but they also didn't believe she was a principal in a premeditated murder. They didn't believe she sat down with the other defendants and planned a killing. They may have believed some version of the domestic violence narrative, not enough to fully exonerate her, but enough to say, this isn't first-degree murder. Now, Florida manslaughter carries a maximum sentence of 15 years in prison. That's the ceiling she's facing. Foolio's mother, in the wake of the verdict, made her position very clear. Give her the max. I'm going to write my impact statement to get her the max. Give her the max plus add 10 years onto it. Under Florida law, the judge does have the ability to add additional time beyond the standard maximum under certain circumstances. Whether that happens remains to be seen. Here's where things get even more interesting. Before Alicia could even be sentenced, her defense attorneys filed motions to have the trial judge, Judge Sisko, removed from the case, alleging judicial misconduct and the appearance of bias. And a higher court agreed with them. Judge Sisko was removed. But here's the catch. She was only removed from Alicia's case. She stayed on the male defendant's case, which means there are now two different judges handling cases that stem from the exact same murder. With no judge in place, Alicia's sentencing has been in limbo. Her new attorneys have used the time to petition the new judge to either overturn her conviction entirely or grant her a new trial. And, this is important, if she gets a new trial, she can only be retried on the manslaughter charge. Under Florida Rules of Criminal Procedure 3.640, once a jury has convicted a defendant of a lesser included offense, she cannot be prosecuted for a higher degree of that offense in any subsequent proceeding. The jury that acquitted her of conspiracy and stepped down to manslaughter effectively capped her exposure at manslaughter for good. So even in a worst-case new trial scenario, she is still only facing up to 15 years. As of the time of this script, Alicia Andrews has a hearing scheduled before her new judge on May 22, 2026, where the court is expected to rule on whether she gets a new trial or gets sentenced on the existing manslaughter conviction. The legal battle is not over. While Alicia's case dragged on, the four men who were the actual shooters went to trial separately. Isaiah Chance, Sean Gathright, Rashad Murphy, Davion Murphy. On May 15, 2026, all four men were found guilty of first-degree murder. All four were sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. No deals, no mercy, life. Isaiah Chance, Alicia's boyfriend, the man she's been calling 5 to 10 times a day from jail, is never getting out. He will die in prison. The man she tattooed on her chest, the man she ignored her lawyers to keep calling, the man who, according to prosecutors, used her as a tool in a murder operation while she was pregnant with his child. He is in prison for life, and Alicia Andrews is still fighting her case in court. Let's zoom out for a second, because this case raises questions that go beyond just Alicia Andrews. How much do you have to know about something to be legally responsible for it? How much does an abusive relationship change the calculus of what someone chose to do? Is it enough to say, I handed him my phone because I was afraid of him, when that phone was being used to track a man who was about to be killed? Is it enough to say, I messaged about the Airbnb because he told me to, when that Airbnb was 1.3 miles from the murder scene? Reasonable people disagree on these questions, and the jury, in reaching a manslaughter verdict, essentially said, the truth is somewhere in the middle. She wasn't completely innocent, she wasn't completely culpable, but here's what the evidence shows. Without any interpretation, Alicia Andrews texted at 17 that Foolio needed to die. She became the girlfriend of a documented gang member. She initiated the Airbnb inquiry 2 days before the murder. She rode in the surveillance car the night of the killing. Her phone was the active communication link between the scout car and the shooter's car. Her phone shared live GPS location to Gathright's phone 3 times as they tracked Foolio. She was in that parking lot at 4:37 a.m. when the cruise made its final confirmation pass before the shooters moved in. She lied to investigators multiple times during her interview. She continued communicating with Isaiah Chance from jail, ignoring her lawyer's instructions, and she sent a message mid-trial saying half the witnesses were dead. Whether that makes her a mastermind, a knowing participant, a coerced girlfriend, or something in between, that was for the jury to decide, and they decided manslaughter. What it definitely makes her is one of the most significant and revealing figures in this entire case. Because Alicia Andrews shows us something that's easy to miss when we talk about gang violence and murder cases. It's not always the person with the gun who makes the operation possible. Sometimes it's the person with the phone,